Evening and welcome to this last of the online events at Migration Matters Festival 2021. My name is Chiwe Chihana and I'll be chairing this session tonight. We've got two celebrated Northern poets in the spoken word scene. We've got Sahaima Manzua Khan, who I'm really excited to have back because I had her last year. And we've also got the amazing Rahima Robinson, who they will both talk poetry and belonging and disrupting the narratives of who or what British really is. That's so exciting. They're going to be supported tonight by Sugra Begum and Dio Bopenga, both poets from Sheffield. So Sheffield being represented there, Migration Matters Festival. Thanks so much. And this is the running order. I'll spend about 10 minutes each speaking to Sugra and Dio, and then we'll just have a bit of an exchange. They'll be reading some of the poetry collection for you. And then I'll invite Rahima and Sahaima as well to do something similar for about 20 minutes. Please leave questions throughout this session tonight. Leave questions, comments, be very interactive, whatever platform you're using. If you're on the Zoom call, please chat with us in there. And if you're on the Facebook or on the web or on Vimeo, please leave some comments for us. We're really looking forward to engaging with you. Before we start, can I just ask for the panelists to say hello to our guests tonight? Hi, Sugra, Dio, Sahaima, and Rahima.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Lovely to have you all, and I'm excited about this. So I'll be going straight in with Sugra. If Sugra could come onto the stage, please, and everybody else will join us a bit later. Sugra, good evening.
Hi, good evening to you.
Lovely to have you. You look amazing. Thanks for joining us at Migration Matters Festival 2021.
Thanks, I'm really excited, actually.
I don't know if you're more excited than I am because your poems, I mean, they're just amazing. But you wanted to give us a little bit of an intro before we got into poetry. So please go ahead.
Yes. You know, my love for language, actually, especially my mother tongue, which is Urdu. And then my second language, which I learned, was English. So I write in both English and Urdu. And I've taught English for many years and obviously put on provision for people who speak English as their second language. And I've taught creative writing. So both Urdu, English, and my students have wrote in their mother tongues.
Lovely, thanks. So just to give you a bit of an intro before Sugra reads us her first poem, she has a love for languages and has taught ESOL and creative writing, poetry, and short stories. And like I said earlier, representing Sheffield tonight. Please read your first poem for us.
Yes, my first is just a verse from our national poet, Sir Muhammad Allama Iqbal. And he, if I may present, हजारों साल नरगिस अपनी बेनूरी पे रोती है. For 1,000 years, the narcissus has been lamenting its blindness. बड़ी मुश्किल से होता है चमन में दीदावार पैदा. With great difficulty, the one with true vision is born in the garden.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Why that? Why that quote?
It resonates with me so much because, you know, we have so many people, but you do need leadership. You need people with vision. Without vision, society, community does not move, does not improve, does not innovate.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you. Could you read your first poem? I believe it's First Glimpses of England and speaks very much to our theme for today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes. I flew, wild with imaginations. In the dark of the night, we landed in a country of my dreams. In the morning light, I saw everything covered in a blanket of snow. What's this, Mom? I shouted out of awe. Dressed in gear, a vest and tights, I ran out into the wintry, freezing fair. It's cold, this stuff, and feet out of sight. Get in, lass, you daft little mite. You'll freeze to death in your tights. This is Yorkshire weather, don't you know? Dashed into the room and huddled in front of the fire, cozy and contented. I wrapped in something I desired, warm inside and gazing out towards the sky. I thought, what a beautiful sight.
Oh, that's amazing. That's beautiful. Gives me so many memories of my own childhood. I like, so when you say in a country of my dreams, in the dark of the night we landed, how does that resonate with you now and where you are?
Yeah, I mean, my father came to England. I hadn't seen him for many years. So, it was a country that I used to imagine about. And when I came, it was totally different. The snow, the first time I saw it, it was amazing. It was just a wonderland, I was in awe of it. And the cold and everything. So I'm trying to really, the poem I just wrote as I felt at the time.
Good, lovely. Please go ahead and read your second poem.
In this world, I'm a nobody. I'll repeat that. In this world, I'm a nobody. In a small corner of England, I'm a somebody. In my family size, I'm everybody. However, in God's kingdom, I'm an individual of many.
Wow. Wow. In God's kingdom, I am an individual of many. Talk me through what was happening with that poem. What were you thinking? What was going through your mind?
Yes, I mean, at the time, when I wrote this poem, I felt that actually, like most of the time, people feel they are a nobody, And then in a small part of the community, whether it's Yorkshire, Sheffield, etc., and that you do feel that you're a somebody because so many people know you. And then in your family, obviously, you have a good prominent position and you do feel that, you are everybody, etc. and that. But then if you look at the global world, and globalization, then you and a person of faith that I'm a Muslim,
Yeah.
then I do feel that, in God's eyes, I am an individual and He looks after me. And it's hope. I have great hope.
Lovely. And that sense of identity speaks to the third poem you're reading for us as well. Could you just go straight into it? I think it does, it segues really well.
Okay. Just sharing it. Trying to move it down.
I think you might need to, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a poem that I wrote recently, to be honest. I'm a dot on the planet Earth. My country identifies me. I'm a statistic, and therefore I am. I'm a dot on the planet Earth. So very short, but wrote it during the pandemic, just as we came out of the pandemic. So all these statistics flying about and everything, I thought, actually, I'm just a dot on the planet.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, interesting, isn't it? From this person, somebody in this little corner of England to just this little dot on the planet. I find that very powerful. What the pandemic has actually made us, how the pandemic has actually made us rethink who we are as well. Yeah. So great, thank you very much. I know we'll have more to talk about a bit later, but for now, thank you so much. Really enjoyed that. And if people still have questions for Sugra, please post them in because I will be speaking to her again a bit later. For now, can I invite Dio to join us? Yeah, Dio, good evening and welcome to Migration Matters Festival 2021.
Thank you. Good evening to everybody again.
Oh goodness, I'm so excited to have you again as well. Like, you're just all amazing. So Dio is a business developer and a volunteer with Voluntary Action Sheffield. Dio was born in Congo and raised in South Africa, and he now lives in Sheffield. He's part of a project that I actually participated in called the Good Chance Poetry Collective. So really excited to have you tonight.
Thank you. Yeah.
Dio, you wanted to frame this around motherhood, parenting, and struggles, and so I'm really keen to hear that. Your first poem is called "Outside at the Park" or "Kabega Park." Do you want to go straight into that?
I think I should go straight into the poem and then maybe just have a little chat about it, because there's just few words there where maybe people can get puzzled about it. Just to explain, basically I write poem based on my personal life experience, and then I decided to write this poem. It's called "Outside the Park," which was Kabega Park. An oval concrete just next to the deep grass root with the smell of urine and a rough edge. It pierces my flesh when I sit on it. I can't seem to doze off. The warmth of the humid air between those two walls overwhelms me. A fur jumper with crossover colors, squashed orange overlaid the black and the blue. I would have suspended it on the Von Staden Bridge, but this will be such a long walk. So basically, when I was the inspiration I got to write this poem, it reminds me of the struggle that I had when I was too young. Things were not going well with my stepmother, and then I actually spent the night at the park. And when I was at night at the park, I was thinking of how to kill myself. And then there is a bridge in South Africa, in the Eastern Cape, called Van Staden Bridge, where I think there's a lot of people that go there and commit suicide. And where I was at the park, so it's quite a bit of a distance to actually get to the bridge. So I think the distance kind of prevented me from actually going to actually actually act on according to my thoughts. And the colors that I mentioned there was actually the clothes, that's the jumper that I was wearing. And I thought to myself that, I'll be hanging on the Von Staden, but then I'll end up jumping, but my jumper will stay behind. So that's just the thought that I had from the inspiration of this poem.
Right.
I think I would like to read my second one. So the second poem, I dedicated this poem to my late father, because today is Father's Day. Happy Father's Day to everybody, all the Father's Day and the future fathers. Happy Father's Day. So this was when he was in the coma just before he passed, and it was, I think, the last time when I saw him that he was actually alive before he actually got into a coma. And it's called "There's Still No Air." Trees waves at me outside the window, like the glow of sunflower on the farmland. Crispy, dry leaves waving as they disconnect from the source stem and crash down. The whirring ventilation from my computer helps me process these thoughts, but I turn it off and bring my mind to your locked cell, this untidy room with smelly socks on the chair, locked under your sleep, I guess. I still can't hear your voice. You have fallen into a deep sleep, and the only thing holding your soul is this vent. I miss you. Soft, warm touch with those cold feet when you lie beside me. Can you hear me? Can you hear my cracked voice? Muted past. No nurse, no cure. I'm losing hope. The doctor is about to shut this vent. I close my eyes, swallow my spit, tears drop, my mind speak. Suddenly, cold sweat drips down my spine. and your voice echoes. You gently caress my hand with your crispy, dry hands, cold as a record snake, and you say to me, there's still no air. I get a bit emotional when I read this poem, but it's just I had to bring it forward because it was Father's Day, just to remember the memory of our loved one that we've lost.
Yeah, I can actually see that, and thank you so much for sharing that with us, and such a poignant one for today specifically. As everybody is celebrating Father's Day, I think it's just recognition of loss as well. Would you like to read us your third poem?
Okay, the third poem is one of my favorite poems, all-time favorite poem. It speaks about the motherly love and the agape of the way we share food or meal with each other. So it's called Mama Used to Say. Mama used to say, teach a man to fish and he shall feed him every day. Breaking of bread, it's peace and welcome. Life leads one way, but we have to survive each day. Like this giant wave at sea. Nobody knows where they're heading. Make time for life, make time for others. Follow the path you have seen from your dreams. Like this crashing wind that blows from everywhere and comes from nowhere. Care about strangers. To bring the flood of seasoning storm, the rain never-ending boneless fishes. See how condensation will gather all the salty fishes from the sea to the sky into your kitchen. Welcome everybody with the warmth of a mother's breast holding a baby. Not everybody who knocks at your door is lost.
Thank you, Dio. Care about strangers. I think that's the essence I'm getting from all that. Like, it's a lot, but it's care about strangers. Why that?
I think I wrote this poem to respond to a certain poem, but then I started thinking of how people were coming when I came to Sheffield, the love I receive and the support I receive. And then I think this poem, not only do I dedicate to my mother or any mother day, but also to show the love and the friendliness that we receive from people that we do not know. And people open doors to me, people that I didn't even know. So
yeah, right.
I'm just trying to show the love on this poem.
Thank you. Dio, thank you so much. I think I will want to tap a little bit into that coming into Sheffield a bit later, especially when we start talking a bit more about what or who is British. So thank you so much. Really appreciate that. And see you a bit later. And that was Dio. Really, really excited to introduce another one of the two giants that we have tonight in the poetry scene. Rahima Robinson, please come on screen if you can, if you're there.
Hi, Chiwe.
Hi, Rahima. Good evening. Really excited to have you tonight.
Thank you.
Just a brief bio. So Rahima Robinson is a poet and cultural events programmer. She is also the founding director of the Sunday Practice, a creative hub and open mic event based in Leeds. So that's the Sunday Practice has toured UK poets across Florida in the United States, Europe, and has hosted prominent national and international artists. Rahima has worked as a teaching artist for 10 years, facilitating creative writing workshops throughout Yorkshire and worldwide. And there's a whole lot more about you, but hello. And please tell me where you want to start from tonight.
Sure, yes. So I'm thinking to start with a piece that I wrote in response to the Leeds Black History Walk. So I'm based in Leeds, and the Black History Walk it's essentially a walk, but it's also a bit of it combines performance and theatre to give information about the Black presence and the Black history in Leeds, inspired by some of the buildings in the city centre and specifically around the university. So just kind of responding to today's themes of what is British, I kind of wanted to take it all the way back to like the 15th century, and then I'm going to move forward in time with my poems. So this piece, I titled it Black Is. And it opens with a quote, an old African proverb. Until the story of the hunt is told by the lion, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. We are small gods, resurrection deities guarding the earth. We are oceans and ocean, bodies of fertile water, love and divinity. We are Shango, prosperity of oil, Ife. We are empires, Mali and Ghana, symbolized in Adinkra, Black supremacy. We are children of legacy, from those who gave gold to the poor and traded salt from the seas that we first sailed in the cities that we built. Black is the keeper of knowledge. We curated man's library, and inside of sanctified walls, assembled without machines, we taught medicine and astronomy, chemistry and geography. We could never be uneducated. We are education. Timbuktu is you. The crown belongs to you. Fear is for the inferior. Our ancestors were superior. Melanated sons of the sun, we are supreme. Amun, Olaroon, Amun, as black as the first day of earth. Olaroon, ruler of the heavens, the blueprint of life, who cast us from light and stars, with spines of diamonds and tanzanite, with skin of clay and hearts like feathers. He climbed down from the skies and gave birth to the earth. The OGs of existence, walking in the footsteps of resistance, all the way to Yorkshire, where our wealthy great-great-great-granny wore bangles of jet and ivory, decorated in silver. She died in York and was laid to rest with a mirror for us to look in and remember who we are, children of constellations, citizens of the world, descendants of Africa. And as the dead do not bury themselves, the respect for Black bodies was apparent. The modern world should put some respect on our names, Black names, on our skin, Black skin, on our lives, Black lives. Just as their ancestor, Queen Victoria, did, burying Ethiopian Prince Alameyu in Windsor Castle. Let it be known there is no castle without king, no king without God, and God is.
Oh my God. Oh my God, Rahima, we're disrupting. We're disrupting right from you're not playing tonight. Yeah, keep your microphone on, please. That's let's start with education. We are education.
Yes. So the libraries of Timbuktu, which is one of the first recorded or known libraries in the world. And it's funny because I was part of this group actually, but there's a lot of people that think it's a mythical place or a non-existent place or somewhere from a storybook. And I was actually of that belief when I was younger. And so it's just a reminder to people all over the world, generations all over the world, not just Black people, that, you know, we are the bearers of education. And although we go through all of these struggles in kind of present day times, there's lots of statistics about different groups of people being underachievers or dropout rates from school. Just want everyone to know that education comes from so many different places, and we are the founders of education. So even if you feel like it's escaped you, it's always at reach. It's always there for you.
Thank you. And before we go to the next one, why was it important for you to contextualize it so historically? I think that's very important, but why? I feel like you're taking back something that we've lost by doing that, but what were you thinking?
I feel like I could contextualize each individual line, but I think that's what happens with commissions where you're writing in response to something. So I went on the Leeds Black History Walk, and it was such an experience. It's led by Joe Williams from the Heritage Corner, and he tells all these tales of like Prince Alameyu, who's an Ethiopian prince, the only I might have to look this up later if you guys want to look this up. I'm pretty sure he's the only Black person and the only person of non-British royalty to be buried at Windsor Castle. So it was kind of just a natural response to use all of these historical references I was learning along the way, and just even about the bangled lady, the lady who was laid to rest in York and she was buried with a mirror. These are all true things. Some of you may have heard of the bangled lady. The research shows that she was definitely Black, she was definitely of African heritage, and it was very highly likely that she was extra rich just because of the stuff that she was wearing and that she was clothed in. And I just found that fascinating, that I have an ancestor, a wealthy, great female leader who traveled all the way to York. Like, how that's crazy. So yeah, that's where the historical context of the piece came from. There's so many different moments that I wish I could expand on, but I would definitely...
we'll probably talk about it a bit more in the chat later with everyone, because that's powerful. And there was a lot of learning on my end, but please could you go into your next poem just so we could learn some more?
Yes. Whilst I'm just pulling up my next piece, I definitely would like everyone to go on the Leeds Black History Walk if they get a chance. So I've chosen this next piece kind of to bring us forward a bit in history again, going with the themes of today. This piece, I called it The Windrush, and it was a free write that I did in a workshop that I was actually leading. So I come from a workshop prompts that I use often. So while other young people were writing, I decided to write myself. And it goes: I come from compromise, adjusting for generations and generations, dehumanized. My culture is a franchise. Melanin is now customized, minds desensitized, so unruly behavior goes unrecognized or even justified. Ultimately rewarded with chicken deep fried, sanctions may be imposed, but prison is glorified. I come from opportunity and chance. Golden tickets to England grabbed with no chance, with no glance at the small print. 1950s Jamaica was in a trance. 1960s independence did not better circumstance. I come from dance. Butterfly and burgle. Dance hall and reggae take a stance. The West give a cash advance. I come from an old school work ethic. Hard, gritty hands of JA in the UK, armed with the resilience of those athletic. Early shifts and night shifts in the same 24 hours, epic proportions of blood and sweat and biting of the tongue. Granny's tired face becomes aesthetic. A strong back but tired heart, these are my genetics. I come from Black. Random attacks, no interview callbacks, and why don't you just go back? Mother pleading with high school teachers, don't tell my daughter her skin is whack. Baby girl, don't let them have you doing jumping jacks. Watch your back, type of Black. I come from escapism, institutional racism, family favoritism, all the isms and schisms. I am prison. I redirect light internally, separate, invert, divert, and polarize infernally. I come from, I am that I am eternally.
Oh God, thanks, Rahima. Yeah. When did you say you wrote this? When you had the session?
I wrote this poem. I wrote this years ago. Actually, it was just a little free write. So I think you mentioned in my introduction that I do a lot of teaching. teaching creative writing and facilitating workshops. So I come from is just a writing prompt that I've been using for years. It's something I picked up from workshops that I was involved in as a youth myself. And so sometimes I just find it productive when I'm actually in the workshops and you give the young people 10, 15, 20 minutes to write, that you just kind of do the prompt yourself and just see what comes out of it. So that was just the words I come from, and then just see what comes out of that. And I just happened to write about, I guess, a little bit of my grandmother's journey into England and how her time in England has kind of affected us generationally. So that is, because it's a free write, it kind of is.
You just go with it. That's a very good prompt. Also very timely, I suppose, contextually speaking, and the times that we're in, and it's that narrative about what is British, who is British. So you've kind of brought that back into that.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to read that piece today. It's not a piece I normally read because it is a free write, but just kind of responding to what is British and everything that is going on with the Windrush right now. I just kind of wanted to bring that piece in and just show a little bit of my identity. And I thought it was a nice journey from the first piece in terms of where Black comes from historically, and then how we ended up as a people in the UK, and kind of redefining what British civilization looks like today.
Brilliant, thanks. Everyone else that's watching, please remember we're taking your questions, and then the poets will be interacting with each other later on based on what you're listening to right now. Go ahead with your next one, Rahima.
Sure. Let me just take a look at my sticky notes and see what I planned for myself today.
Okay, as you do that, I'll ask Sahima, Dio, and Sugra to get ready as well to engage later on, because some brilliant stuff you're bringing up there.
I think I want to do another old piece just for the sake of bringing back poems.
Go ahead.
And again, it's the theme of the not only the festival but today's event that's inspired me. So I did pull out this very old piece about my name, which is Rahima. So I grew up Muslim, and being Black, British, and Muslim was and is still a very interesting experience. This is another free write, and I'll talk about it afterwards. My name is Rahima, a name my mother handpicked with the grip of her heart, a name derived from the Holy Quran, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, in the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. I am mercy. My name is Rahima, and no one can ever pronounce it. It doesn't help that my mouth comes together like a fist of resistance. My tongue hits the roof as if it's angry at the dialect bestowed upon it and refuses to pronounce a lowercase r. My name is Rahima, and no one can ever pronounce it, or no one ever will. My name is one of God, and despite my relationship with religion, it still is of God. It still is a name born in an ancient tongue, a mother tongue, but mother's tongue has been colonized. Our mouths cannot recognize home. Muscles are made of memories, and as a result, we are the strongest humans on earth. Our women's backbones are indestructible, and our men possess skin like diamonds. Mother's tongue has been colonized. Our lips can purse together to whistle Dixie, but cannot articulate what are now foreign sounds. Our minds act like filters and will not deliver the vitamins of language. The muscles in our lips have the ability to shut, becoming literally airtight, keeping out any unwanted objects, We, superhuman, sewn together with holy fibers, with moons in our eyes and light in our skin, that of 10 billion suns, we, supernova. But by my definition, we are all of, if not God, so act like one and say my name. A dua which begins with Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim will not be rejected by Allah. Do not reject me, please, fellow G or D. Take me as I am, take me now, and I will protect you. Each letter of my name will serve as a guard from the hellfires, say it slow. The book says, and my spirit confirms, that to call on God without purity of the soul and without sincerity is disrespectful. Perhaps this is the reason my name will not form in the mouths of some. Maybe they know not to disrespect a God, the fear of non-believers, as they are not ready to accept the heavens in their mouth. Ismi Rahima. Allahu Akbar. My name is Rahima. God is good. How good of a God are you?
Oh, wow. Yeah, I find that so relatable, but please talk us through that. Then I can probably speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, you know, reading that piece, I feel like I actually just inspired myself. I think I'm going to rework that piece, but trying to remember my thinking at the time, it was just it's definitely obviously about my name. On the website, you can see my name is Rahima Robinson, which it is on my birth certificate, but my mum gave me the name Ibrahim, and my whole life, all the way through high school and college, I grew up as Rahima Ibrahim. And then I kind of got to an adult where I started to try to go into my working life and not getting interviews and just seeing how people responded to what I looked like when I did get an interview and walked into the office. And I just started to realize that people having these conflicting responses to my identity, and then it caused conflict within myself. I realized my name maybe does not popularly reflect what I may look like. There was also an incident where I was working in a call center when I was younger, and a lady refused to speak to me because she assumed that I was Pakistani, and I absolutely flipped my lid. Long story short, I no longer worked there because I had lots of things to say to that customer. And so it's just a bunch of different experiences. It's just a bunch of different experiences, having my name and having my skin, and just kind of trying to figure out what that means to me. So kind of towards the ending, I just figured that if you can't say my name, and I'm sure this happens with a lot of people with non-English names, and sometimes we change our names or we try to make it easier, but I think I just was getting to a point where I thought, that's your problem if you can't say my name.
Yeah.
And if you care to learn it, then you will learn it. So that's been my mentality for a long time, and something I'm still working through.
My eyes are welling up only because you literally just spoke something that I've never embodied in poetry, you know, or anything else. I've never really managed to put it there. Yeah, so I'm excited because with the fact that we've got Sahaima coming on later, because Sahaima has explored this quite a lot from that religious perspective angle as well, which is something that for me has not come into play, maybe because I'm Christian, and so, but I have found myself changing my name quite a lot, interchangeably, so I could fit in and people could use a different version or variation of my name. Until about 3-4 years ago, I started to reclaim that, and now I have no compromise on my identity, no erasure. I'm not allowing anyone to erase who I am. So thank you for that powerful, powerful, powerful resonance with me.
Something people with dual identities would have been through in some capacity. But I just want to leave you guys with one last poem, if I've got time.
Yeah, you have. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Kind of leads actually nicely from the conversation we've just had, because it's called Protest, and it's about protest. This was a commission I had last year when I was part of the BBC First Words competition, and this was in the light of Black Lives Matter. And to be honest, at this point, I was a little bit exhausted, although I'd been really active and quite loud in that movement. I spoke at one of the marches in Leeds. At this point, I was a little bit exhausted. And so this was my response to the word protest.
Thanks.
I cannot tell you about disorder, about relentless cries of mothers whose sons swallowed tear gas, voices burnt into heavy, waxy mumbles chambered by the echo of emptied barrels. I cannot tell you about rage. That sounds like clinking metal in 24-hour gins, compressed jaws, thick veins bellowing like tree trunks in forest fires. Must I tell you about marches that look like icons lined up on the altar of gods they asked predecessors of Black not to believe in? Their pious paws sinking in the quicksand of autocracy. Smoke bombs incite the spirit like white sage wavering under exploded noses. I cannot tell you about placards, curled and creased like dried petals of sorry for your loss bouquets in the hands of daughters who will search for their departed fathers in lovers. I cannot tell you, not when there is so much existing to do. Before, in between, and after broadcasting of gasping, mangled remains, chocolate-dipped strawberries left on the pavement like an offering to a god, not shared. There is so much persisting to do, so much remaining, so much undoing, ongoing, building. Between all of the surviving, man, there is so much living to do.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Rahima. Maybe just one thing you can say about that, and then I'll get Sahaima to come on.
Yes, sure. Again, that was a prompt that we were given by the BBC, and the word was literally protest, and we just had to go and write these poems. But in my spirit, I felt like they definitely wanted us to write in response to Black Lives Matter, because that's what was going on at the time, and there was there was so much other protests going on at the time. But for me, I was kind of going through a transition of just wanting to do self-care. So there's several versions of that poem, and there's parts where it weaves in and out of, I cannot tell you about disorder because I really just want to be washing my afro and putting shea butter in there. Like, there's that version of the poem as well. So it's just kind of that far. I think anyone who's an active participant in anything kind of to do with society and social issues, whether it's local or whether it's at a global level, sometimes it can just be exhausting, no matter how much we want to be part of the conversation, part of the change. Sometimes we're actually allowed to just step back and paint your toenails or do whatever it is that you do to unwind or just take a breath. So yeah, that's kind of where I was at that time. It's just like, I just can't, I don't want to have this conversation.
It's labor, it is labor, you know, and we have to be forgiving of ourselves as well. Thank you so much, Rahima, and looking forward to catching up with you on the other side. Thanks everyone for all the questions that you're bringing in. We'll be discussing those at the end of the session, but right now I would like to invite Sahaima Manzoor Khan. Are you there? Hi. Sahaima, this is the second time that we've had Sahaima coming to Migration Matters Festival. I was privileged to interact with her last year. Just a bit of a background. Sahaima is an educator, award-winning poet and published writer from Leeds. She's the author of poetry collection Post-Colonial Banter, which I suggest you get a copy of. And she's also co-author of the anthology A Girl's Guide to University, Being a Woman of Color at Cambridge and Other Institutions of Power and Elitism. And she's co-essayist in I Refuse to Condemn, Resisting Racism in Times of National Security, and Cut from the Same Cloth, as well as host of Breaking Binaries podcast. Welcome back to Migration Matters Festival.
So happy to be here. So nice to see you again.
It's so nice to see you too. Whoa. It's been a great evening, and this is, I think, what we've just heard from Rahima dovetails so well into your work. I just want you to take it away.
Yeah, no, I've loved hearing from everyone so far, Sugra and Dio and Rahima, and yeah, like really appreciate the way the conversations have been going, and I think it's a good reminder as well of like how honest I think we sometimes are required to be in these conversations and how that can be really fruitful. I guess to kind of yeah, continue on the theme of like thinking about history of Britain as well. My first poem that I'm going to share is called Where is My History? And it was a commission that I wrote for a project that was going on in Birmingham about how local history was narrated to young people in Birmingham. And I studied history. I'm always very interested in how we think about history and how we're told history and whose histories we're told. And I know this is obviously a conversation around curriculums at the moment and in the last few years. So this is me speaking to that question, where is my history? My history is imprinted in the spaces between the ink printed on pressed pages. My history is the screams shouting out through the silent slots in syllabi. It is caged in glass cases, said to be for its own safety by the institutions which narrate it as their own. Because my history lies in the choices not recorded, about which stories should be hoarded and called archives. And my archives are the chicken shops, the taxi stops, the backseats of rentals, the inside hems of headscarves, women's conversations, women's congregations, women's contemplations, which you will not find in your local heritage site. No, because my history is the shame of your history, the body buried in the back garden with no gravestone, that in fact not so shameful, no, for it is also adorning your proudest buildings, the ones I'm searched before entering, as if my bringing something in would be disturbing, as if my things weren't already coveted and stolen, read salvaged and reallocated to make up these museums in the first place. It's almost as if history is less about what happened than maintaining ideology. Because when you investigate a story with half the participants absent and don't worry about the translation, want only to fit the narrative to the nation, then is it surprising that what's surmised is that my history is not? That my past is culture and ancient kingdoms, never politics or philosophy. My ideas are religion and oriental, tribes, norms, and alternative remedies, whilst yours are universal teleologies and superior methodologies. No, it's no surprise my past is passed over and pushed into the peripheries despite being palpable in every premise of what gives Britain history. Because to find it would be to remember that if Britain is Tudors and Victorians, it is also slavers and plantations, the colonies and the colonized. To find my past would be to remember that every object in the museum that is said to be objectively seen was plundered and stripped of value for the perusal of researchers and big purses to spectate and win awards. Whilst those of us who are still seen as backwards, who don't get the time or space to explore artifacts, are in fact the outcome of their unnarrated relations to colonial plunder and false salvation. So when you ask where my past is, ask instead what yours is without mine.
Oh, I bow down again, Sahima. I don't know how you get there, but you get there. You just, you know how to punch where we need to punch, and you just don't see. What was the thinking when you were actually writing that poetry? What happened? What's the environment you were in? What space were you in?
Yeah, so I mean, the question was just literally, where is my history? And I guess I was thinking about that in different ways, right? I was thinking about in the sense of physically, where do I look to find my history? And I think, there is this evidence, recently about how Operation Legacy was something that the British government did, where after a lot of countries became independent from British Empire, they literally destroyed, they threw into the oceans, they burnt the archives of what they did do as colonial powers, like what they were doing, what kind of genocides they were involved in, what kind of exploitation they were involved in. And so what does it mean for us to not have the archives, to know, who we are, where we came from, or what happened to our past? And I remember even when I studied history, I wanted to do my final project on the history of Pakistani women who'd migrated to this country in the 1960s and 70s, which was my grandparents, really. And the interesting thing was, because there was so little kind of formal institutional archival material about them, I decided to do an oral history project, so interviewing these women. And it was so interesting because the way that the university perceived that was that, oh, but this is just their memories, as if the memories of people about their own life is somehow less reliable than random, white sociologists, anthropologists filled with the biases of like a very recently colonial empire writing about them. And so when I did go to the archives, the kind of things I would find written about these women would be so, it was like they're unhygienic, they're uncivilized, they don't know how to raise their children. And I was being told this was more reliable than the memories of these women.
Than their stories, they what they know, what they've experienced, what they've lived. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to move along a little bit so we can have that discussion. Could you read us your next one, please?
Sure. So this one's a little bit shorter, and I wrote it basically after kind of everything. I mean, the story's been ongoing now for several years, but when Shamima Begum was originally stripped of her citizenship, and just, I think, watching the way that the British media and a lot of the British public kind of responded to this person as if she was not a person, as if she was never a 15-year-old child who was, vulnerable for many different reasons. And also what that said about the way that, people of color in this country can just be stripped of their citizenship. So it's called A Prayer for Those Who Jeer at the Death of a Baby Whose Teenage Mother You Feel Did Not Show Enough Remorse. May you never feel the weight of what makes you human stripped from your bones. May you never know malnutrition or untimely death. May you always be warm. May you never see enough war that a bodiless head does not disturb you. May you never be alone and vulnerable. May your children not be preyed on. May they never live in a place that tries to vomit them out. May they never lose hope. May safety cloak your shoulders when you stand to pray. May you pray. May you never know the heavy feeling of soil packed between your limbs whilst you're still alive. May you never be a test for the oppressors. May you never be unloved. May people never feel satisfied that the treatment you get is the treatment you deserve. May they give you a name when you die. May they remember you as human. May your death be mourned in fullness and not just a symbol in a bigger debate. May you feel joy like the denseness of the night. May it drown you like the Mediterranean Sea. May it hit you in waves when you least expect it, crash through your door like bulldozers, occupy your home, smatter through your windows, spray you like bullets with your name on them. May you make a home in it. May you choke on it, breathe it, live it, die it, and may no one ever think they have a right to remove you from it.
Thank you, Sahima. Ooh, yeah. Don't even know how to reflect back on that. I mean, Shamima is back in the news actually, I think yesterday as well. So definitely it's as easy as that, I suppose, to just lose it because of who you are. You're not white.
Right, exactly. And I think that's what we saw, wasn't it? That, the basis on which she was told the only reason the government can strip your citizenship is if they believe that you can get citizenship elsewhere. And we all know the basis on which they'll make that assumption. So,
yeah. Could you read another one? Actually, two more if you can, then we'll get into the discussion.
Okay, great. I think I'll read a really short one and then I'll read a longer one, which is on the same theme. So this one, the first short one is just literally about this word that popped up after 7/7 in 2005, and it's the word British-born. And it was used to describe the men who perpetrated the 7/7 attacks. And I just think it's a really fascinating word because why is the hyphen there, right? Paper says British born. Like, that's all it is, just an accident. They rubbed out British raised, desperately trying to deflect, erasing the context and connection, the fact this society made him, this land, this place, our words, our harm. But he's British born, not British. British, never British. They say the birthplace is somehow random, places motives in a foreign land, must be the fact of his grandparents' blood, must be the fact of his skin. What a welcome from the heart of the empire, Raj of the Raj, a massive thumbs up from the hand that sliced us. British born, not British made, foreign goods somewhere deep inside. I am British born, British passport, but neon hijab and signposted skin. Scanner goes off, obviously. A woman feels over me and looks straight through me. Random swabs are made. I am unmade. Passport says British, her I say British born only.
Thank you. Yeah. I remember you and I having a discussion around that last year before the actual call. So there's a lot we explored on there, including what I hope we can also talk about a bit later about when you want to have like someone like me who's lived my, born in Bradford, but lived my formative years in Zambia, and I still want to hold on to both. So that context kind of works for me sometimes, but let's have the conversation. It's really interesting. Let's read the last poem and then I'll bring in everybody else.
Awesome, wicked. Yeah, so this final poem speaks for itself, so I'll just jump into it. It's called British Values. Young Muslims in Britain often straddle two worlds. They appear to have a foot in each. Cultural concerns revealed around the national identification of Muslims in Britain. Review raises alarm over social integration in the schools to promote fundamental British values. The face of Britain is changing beyond recognition. I look in the mirror. It's not shattered, I am whole. No one foot in, one foot out. No reason I've got to learn Britishness from the somehow more devout. I'm not uneasy, torn, or straddling. It's not shattered, I am whole. Yet the opposite is somehow all that you'll get told. I mean, I guess because if it wasn't, if we faced up to the glass, you'd be left with the fact that I am inside. I am Britain now. Because Britain is Bismillah, Britain is basmati rice, Britain is box braids and black barbers shops, Bollywood and Bhangra. Britain is Bradford and Barking and Birmingham. Britain is biryani and black beans. Britain is black, Britain is brown. Britain is boys blasting dubstep on the bus to town. Britain is body popping outside the tube. Britain is Brick Lane before it was cool. Britain is bilingual. Britain is the burqa. Britain is praying in the changing rooms. Britain has its feet in your sink. Britain is bad at knowing itself, belligerent and boring. Britain is not changed beyond recognition. Recognize it was never one thing. I am the inside you pretend is outside, but we have to stop pretending. Pretending the rolling hills are just romantic, not remnants of injustices swept under a rug, like the tea didn't come from Asia, like its sugar wasn't grown by slaves, like dry humor isn't a way to just ridicule dissent, and cues don't expose the way we're always told to wait for change rather than making it. And it's funny that over-apologizing is seen as a national trait, because half of history is still waiting. I look in the mirror. It's not shattered, I am whole, there is no brink or turning point. I'm here. Britain is barbaric. Oh, sorry, did you think that was me? Barbaric bystander straddling the boundary, not quite inside, so you could say I'm the things you forgot, like you're modern, so I'm backwards. You're democratic, so you say I'm not. When the truth is, Britain is blood on its hands and back to the wall. Britain is selling weapons to the most repressive regimes in the world. Britain is the bombs the Saudis drop on Yemen. Britain is using fear to build surveillance apparatus since 9/11. Britain is believing in human rights whilst removing them all. Britain is Yarl's Wood, Brook House, Colnbrook and Morton Hall. Britain is 1,600 dead in or after police custody since 1990. And Britain has no qualms about detaining asylum seekers indefinitely. Britain is suicide attempts, secret courts and secret torture. Britain is stopping you at the border. Britain is seeing it, saying it, sorting it, which means Britain is also deporting it. Because what else do you do when you look in the mirror and find the sugar and tea had strings attached? The factories on the rolling hills depended on our labor. The bombs destroyed the homes of kids now at the border. Britain is barbaric. Britain is blindly patriotic. Britain is built on false narratives, slices of other people's dishes. Britain has stolen artifacts in museums named after itself. Britain is knife and fork polite, stabbing you at will. Britain is selective. Yours till it's not, in yours till it's not, then blaming you. Britain is borders, Britain is Brexit, Britain is spending on weddings but not fireproofing homes. Britain is cutting mental health services yet somehow strong and stable. Britain is 50% of young people in custody being from ethnic minority backgrounds, and Britain is blaming them for this statistic rather than asking difficult questions, because Britain is blaming the kids who aren't white. Britain is blaming the Muslims. Britain is blaming the immigrants. Britain is blaming bureaucracy. Britain is not listening. Britain is not that great. Britain is breaking, but breaking everywhere except the place it puts the blame, because there's only a few things left that are great about Britain. And there that Britain is Bismillah, Basmati and bilingual, box braids and black barbers shops, Bollywood and Bangara, body popping outside the tube, Brick Lane before it was cool. Britain is the burqa. Britain is praying in the changing rooms. Britain has its feet in your sink. Britain is your greatest nightmare, every repercussion you never thought through. Britain is the terror to be countered. Britain is the mind to be got inside. I am the great in Great Britain now, and aren't you terrified? Thank you so much.
Oh God, Sahima, what have you done? I'm going to invite Rahima, Dio, Sugra onto the please come back onto the call. Let's all just reflect back on what we've heard today. And feel free to unmute yourselves. We just we need to talk. We need to talk. Rahima, any reflections?
Oh, that last piece in particular, that was the one.
Thank you.
That was the one. Britain is Bismillah, basmati rice, is box breads. I mean, says it all. Britain, the foot in the sink. I was like, ooh, tell him. I love it because that's the reality of Britain citizens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you don't just get that anywhere. That's the sort of stuff that's missing, in everyday school. I wish I learned this in school. I had poets like this in school. Dio, somebody was asking what your creative process is. I know you've answered it, you've typed it, but would you like to just talk about it?
Yeah. So basically, I think I get a lot of thoughts. I get a lot of ideas overnight because I hardly sleep. I sleep for I think 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning. It's just how a process of dealing with depression. And I think the most I'm stuck with thoughts in my mind or overthinking, that's when I put things words to paper. And then ideas come, thought comes, and then I create a spider diagram, do a free write, and then maybe when I wake up late at 10 or 11 in the morning, I decide to write it a poem. So yeah, really, I think it's just it's a way of me to dealing with depression, and poetry is actually an escape for me.
Thank you. Yeah. Sugra, I wondered whether you could reflect back on now. I mean, having heard everyone today, could you reflect a little bit on what British is, from where we started from?
Well, I think Samaya, read Fast and Furious and strongly resonate with a lot of her thoughts and everything. Yeah, British and Britain is actually very much a melting pot. In Sheffield, for instance, would you believe it? There are more than 180 different languages being spoken. Mm. So diverse, is beyond multiculturalism, etc. And I think that Britain and the British people, indigenous people, don't realize that about their own history, about what they call just British. They do not realize it's a mixture of so many races. Over the many thousands of years ago, the Romans came, the Vikings came, the Anglo-Saxons came, etc. And so people from Eastern Europe and that. And where did we all start off anyway? We started off in Africa, So history's brought everything like full circle. It's a great place, to be honest with you. I like to look at things in a very positive manner. We have so much to contribute. Everybody is contributing, Black people, Pakistani people, people of different, like Chinese people, different people are contributing. They're working very hard. And some of the poems are truly reflecting that we are having to work twice as hard.
Absolutely.
we are having to prove ourselves in so many different ways. Now, I'm from further education. You know, I went into senior management, but every step of the way, you have to work twice as hard as your other colleague.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Sahaima, how easy is the process for you to relay what, you know, these important conversations, to relay them in poetry in comparison to having a conversation with people? How does that work for you?
To be honest, I think I find writing poetry about these things much easier than having the conversation, because I think in a way it's like what I'm usually responding to is the narratives that exist, and it's like what, you know, it's like trying to speak back to like the thing that society is saying, and like you can, if I try to have a conversation, like the people I want to have that conversation with, they don't want to have a conversation about it. Do you know what I mean? It's like I'm not really interested in where the conversation can move us either. I think it's like by asking questions about these. I think what I find really frustrating sometimes is in the conversations we have, we're pushed into this corner where we have to say like, I am British, I am from here, you know, and it's like, you're not from here, go back where you're from. And I find that's a really reductive debate, because it's not about whether you are or not. The question is really, who gets to decide? And how come Britain was a global empire until very conveniently recently it's just whoever's in the borders, and now actually anyone who's seeking asylum here, let's put them on an island somewhere and detain them. And so I think that, yeah, for me, it's like writing poetry is definitely, it's like, you know, it's like, it's quite self-indulgent in that sense of like, I'm just going to put everything that I need to say about this issue on the paper, and I don't want to have a dialogue. Like, I'm happy to have a dialogue with you guys, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to have a dialogue with the people who actually spew that narrative.
Thank you. Thank you. I tend to relate to that. I find when I put things on paper, I've told you what I want to say, my opinion on the subject. Does that speak to, you know, your poem on protests, Rahima? I'm feeling like that's the kind of job that did for you, and the context of you just being exhausted from it all. Is this what that speaks to too?
A little bit. Just sometimes you find, yeah, the conversations can be exhausting, and sometimes you just find that they're not going anywhere. And so, like Sahaima said, poetry it is a little bit selfish, and it is quite self-indulgent, but also you get to release your mind in the way that you want to, and you know, it speaks for you in that moment. 5 years later, you're allowed to reflect back on work and think maybe my thought has progressed or moved past that, and that's totally fine. So I love poetry for that reason as well, because it's kind of it's like a diary of your own beliefs and your own progression, and also it reflects the way history is moving as well, the way time is moving. If you like, even me going back and looking at my free write about Windrush, it wasn't called Windrush then, it was a free write, but given what's been going on recently in the last few years with that conversation, I just thought I'm calling that piece Windrush because unfortunately reflects that conversation and that experience. But yeah, poetry is definitely for me, but also it's a good starting point for conversations like this, because they do need to be had, but we're also allowed to tap out when we want to.
Thank you. I'm going to ask each of you, so I've just borrowed another 3 minutes from the team. I'm going to ask each of you to just give me one last reflection, and then we're going to sign out. I'll start with you, Shuga.
Yes, it's been great listening to everyone. I'm so inspired. Yeah, I've really enjoyed participating. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Dio, any thoughts around the theme as well?
Yeah, I think I always learn from Migration Meta. Like the session was just beautiful. Migration Meta also helped me to come out, because when I came to Sheffield, I was quite I was just indoor. I couldn't go out, and then I was invited to one of the events in Migration Meta, and then it helped me to come out. And yeah, I am writing poetry. So yeah.
Lovely to have you all the time, Dio. Rahima, final reflections, especially around the topic, who, what is British?
Who and what is British is whatever the hell we want it to be, because we said so. And that's probably going to be my closing words. But I did just want to take a moment to thank Dio, especially for kind of being so open about mental health and depression, especially being male, because I feel like that's the conversation that kind of goes under the radar sometimes. And so these are all parts of us as human beings. They're all part of our identity, our experiences, and sometimes it's just much more than your nationality or your ethnicity or what you can be labelled as, who you're labelled as, but about having conversations about our health and how we can move forward.
Yeah. Ditto that. I actually agree. Thanks for sharing so much, Dio, on mental health, especially from the men's perspective. Yeah. And Sahaima, how are we doing?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to thank you as well, Chiwe, and thank it's been really beautiful hearing all of your poems. And I think I think more than anything, the thing I take away is that whenever I hear people's poetry, you just remember how we're all so much more complex and multifaceted than any of these words allow for, and any of these identities that are put onto us. I mean, I don't feel any special affinity to this island. I don't feel any special affinity to the word British, but like, because it holds so much power in the world, it does have so much political huge to it. But like for us, I think it's just the humanity that's like in these poems is really beautiful to me. And I'm just grateful that you all shared what you did today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. And yeah, a big round of applause to each and every one of you. And thanks to each and every person out there who has joined us for the online festival. We've got the festival is in 2 parts. So we're going to come back on the 9th of July for an in-person and also online festival. But this marks the very end of the online festival this year. Thank you so much. And don't forget to donate, go to our website, and just to champion all the causes around there, where our main cause is around refugees and asylum seekers. So if you could just please support any around you. Good night, and thanks for joining us.